one per family? Yeah. All right. I think we're ready to start. We are live streaming this also, so it will be on our YouTube channel. So when you're thrilled and want to, Angie to read you a bedtime story, just bring it up and watch it. I don't know if you have it on YouTube anywhere.
I don't.
So Iowa City SDA is our YouTube channel, and it will be on your message this morning, and this one will be on there.
Okay.
So you can let people know if they want to tune in and see the program.
Awesome.
Okay. Again, we thank you. Are you ready to go? All right. We are good. So welcome back this afternoon. Hope you appreciated Angie's. What I appreciated about her message this morning is that she talked about preparing. What she's going to talk about more this afternoon, physical preparedness, but she talked about spiritual preparedness, which is vitally important, I think, to our lives and to our relationship with Christ and his promise of his return. So I thank you for that very much. So this afternoon, she's going to go through this. We're going to have a quick prayer. She says an hour, hour and a half, depends on how many questions you have. Awesome. All right? Let's part it's her prayer. Father God, we thank you so much for your blessings. And Lord, we do know that the day is coming. Your soon return is going to be upon us. Is it tomorrow? Next month? A year? We don't know, but we need to be prepared. You have called us to be prepared. Help us to be like the wise virgins, ready for your return, spiritually and physically. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
So I'm glad you stayed by for this. This is the real practical fun part of the classes today. So I brought stuff here to actually show you, and after we're done, you can come up, you can look at things, ask questions. I'm here to help you. You can call me afterwards. I can give you my phone number. If you have questions in the future, you can give me a call, and I'd be happy to help you out in whatever way that I can. So just let me know if you want my number after. Today we're going to talk about being prepared so that we can be prepared to help others. As we talked about this morning already, there are scenarios that could happen. And if you can be prepared for one scenario, you're more prepared for any scenario. So, there's war, there's civil unrest, there's pandemics, there's natural disasters. All those kind of things can happen. And according to Matthew 24, will happen in the future. So whatever we can do to be ready is what we're talking about. I don't know if you've ever seen the show on TV, Doomsday Preppers. I am not here to try to get you to be a doomsday prepper. And there's a different mentality between being a doomsday prepper and preparing for Jesus to come, in my mind. And I just want to tell you the difference. If I'm prepared for what's coming and I'm prepared for disasters, I'm prepared and ready. Instead of being part of the problem, I can be a helper in the problem, right? A lot of doomsday preppers are, I'm going to survive at your expense. I will kill you if so that I can survive. That's kind of like, set up bomb perimeters around the house, have a lot of ammunition, and, going to kill you kind of thing. That's fine if that's what they want to do, but I believe as a Christian that God wants me to be a helper. And the thing is, though, I can only help so many people, right? If we right now were stranded in this church for the next 2 full weeks, the things that I have as preps wouldn't sustain all of us. But if every one of you were also ready, it would be better, right? So all around the world, people are being urged to be prepared. And right now in the country of Sweden, the government is urging and training and teaching people to be more prepared and self-sustaining. It used to be a long time ago, like 40 years ago, in the prepping world, that you prepare for 3 days. You should be prepared for 3 days, and within 3 days, someone would come to your rescue. That is not true now. now it's be prepared for at least 2 weeks or a month in a situation. It could be 2 weeks or a month. And, if you've turned on the TV at all in the last, 5 or 6 years, that's true. People have been stranded without help for weeks on end. So I'm suggesting that you get prepared to be self-sustaining for at least 2 weeks or a month, at least. So being prepared for the scenarios that we talked about this morning, it's not that difficult, and I'm going to show you in a practical way what you can do to help be prepared. So we're going to talk about 3 stages of preparedness today. One is to get home. Be prepared to get home from wherever you are. Most of us don't spend 24 hours at home, right? We're at jobs, we're at school, we're at work, we're somewhere else other than home. So we should be prepared to get home. We should also be prepared to shelter in place. That means, there's an order, a quarantine order, or a civil order that you can't leave your home, and you should be able to shelter in place with or without electricity. So we're going to talk about how to do that. And then if you had to evacuate in 5 minutes, which people are having to do all over the world, and are we so arrogant that we think that could never happen to us? It could happen to us. So we should be prepared to maybe evacuate our home, and what would we need to be able to do that? So these are the 3 scenarios we're going to talk about today. So we really need have some kind of emergency supply. We need an emergency supply kit as a family. We need a home kit. So if you were stranded at home and you didn't have power, what would you do? What would you eat? How would you drink water? What would you do if you were home? At work, if there was a disaster and you were stuck at your workplace, what would you do? And if you're stuck at school, what would you do? And then what could we do as a church to help in these kind of situations that we could be prepared to help other people from our church? I mean, if you just think about it, look how big our church is. How many people could we fit in here sleeping on the pews? I've slept on church pews many a times as a Bible worker, So we could really help a lot of people if we're prepared and have that mentality to do it. So here are some kind of terms. If you get some of the books I recommended, that maybe pick up a book on emergency preparedness. See, there's some of the terms. A BOB is a bug-out bag. So that would be something like this, a backpack you can just grab and go, and it has self-sustaining things in it. A BOL is a bug-out location. So I feel like we should have a bug-out location, and I think a church is a great place to have a location. If you think about it, if there's a disaster, what plan do we have as a church to take care of people? Let's say I'm prepared for a disaster. What about some 90-year-old member? Do we have the mentality that we're going to take care of everybody, or do we have the mentality, it's just I'm going to take care of myself? Right? I think we should have the mentality that we're going to try to help other people. So a BOV is a bug-out vehicle. An EMP is an electromagnetic pulse. EDC is everyday carry. That's kind of what you carry on your person, what you carry in your purse, carry in your pockets. An inch is I'm never coming home. I'm leaving home and I'm never coming back kind of scenario. An MRE is a meal ready to eat. You don't have to cook it. You just open it up and eat it. And SHTF is stuff hits the fan, but the word is not stuff. And there's books on stuff hits the fan. And you can, there's so many books now on emergency prep because I feel like God is screaming to the whole world to get ready for what's coming. And it used to be there were 1 or 2 books on emergency prep. Now there are literally at least 100 books that you can get just about anywhere on emergency prep. My thing's not working. Oh, there we go. So first we're going to talk about get home. So you should have with you in your car, at your office, some essentials that you could have to get home. And this is my get home bag. It just looks like a normal bag, right? And there's something called the gray man, where you don't want to look like a emergency prepper in a situation, right? You don't want to look like, have the military pack with all this stuff on it, and you totally look like you have everything together. You don't want to look like that. You want to be the gray man, where you just sort of blend in with everybody, and I don't look like a prepper, do I? I don't look like I have stuff in here, but I have stuff in here, and you have on your handout some things to put in your get home bag. You keep it at your work. And I was telling somebody before I started that my get home bag, even when I wasn't at work, when I worked in an office, when I wasn't at work, people would call me like, Angie, do you have such and such in your bag? And they would go in my bag and get what they needed. So it comes in handy even if you're not in a crisis. It really is just common sense, isn't it? I mean, it's just common sense. You know, the old timers back in the day, they had a possibles bag. And the mountain men and the pioneers, they all carried a possibles bag. And you know what that was? It was a bag that had the things they needed in case something happened. And so basically, this is a modern day possibles bag that I have in there what I need. If I can't drive home, I can walk home. I have food, I have water, I can stay warm, I can get home, right? That's kind of the principle of a get home bag. So you should have a few things like that in case you need to get home from wherever you are. So home is kind of your home base where you have more things, right? Where you have more necessities and where you have kind of your comfort zone. So if you can get to your shelter-in-place place, which is probably your home, then you're going to be better off than stranded somewhere else. I don't know about you, but in a situation, I personally never plan to be in a university stadium with 40,000 people trying to survive. That doesn't sound like a good time to me. I'd rather be maintaining myself in a tent somewhere under a tree than be in that stadium with a zillion people. So a few things that you can have in your bag, a simple bag, you have it on your list. A water filter, I'm going to talk about water. I'm going to talk about food. I'm going to talk about cooking. I'm going to talk about stoves. So I'm not going to talk about each one of them right now. But, maybe a poncho or something in case it's raining and you can just be covered up. So you have all of that in your list, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. If you have to shelter in place at home, you should be prepared to do that with or without electricity. So there's a rule in emergency planning that one is none. If you only have one way of doing something, you basically have no way of doing something. So if the only way that you can cook food at home is with an electric stove, and you don't have any electricity, how are you going to cook food? You're not, right? If the only water you have at home is what's coming out of your faucet, if you can't run your pump to make your faucet work, how are you going to get water? You're not. So you need to think, I need multiple ways of doing what I do. So we have the convenient way, electricity, pumped water, city water, whatever, toilets flush, everything works. That's the convenient way. We also need to learn the not so convenient way to be able to take care of ourselves. So shelter in place is important. You should have at home, like if you don't have electricity, you should have some flashlights at home, have some Long-term candles, this is a long-term candle, 115-hour candle that will burn. So long-term candles, you should have an alternative way to cook food. So if you have, at your home, you have a stove, if you have a gas stove, that's fine. If you have a grill, that's a second way. If you have another portable cooking device, that's a third way. Remember, you need more than one way to do everything. So think about how long could you sustain life at your house if you didn't have power. You need to think about that and work through that. And even, I would suggest sometimes just pretend. Pretend. Make a meal sometime and pretend that you don't have any power. Spend a night where you have no power. Your phone doesn't work, your electricity doesn't work, and just set yourself up, practice a scenario. You know how the military does it, right? You go through training and you practice all the scenarios so that when you're in the scenario, you already know how to do it. So you can do that easy. It wouldn't hurt to have some plastic at home and some tape. If you had to put plastic on your windows, it would keep your house warmer if you had to shelter in place and you didn't have any heat in the wintertime. So it wouldn't hurt to have some plastic. And then a few tools, something like a emergency radio. You can get these now that have hand cranks, so they won't ever run out of battery. You just crank it up, and then it will work. Yeah, see? So you can pay attention to what's happening in the world, right? And it has a flashlight on it. These are pretty cheap now. In fact, I was doing a seminar a few years ago. I cranked my radio out, I turned it on, and it said, "Take shelter immediately, tornadoes coming," to where I was in that church. So we all had to go to the tornado shelter. So that was kind of cool. But something like a radio, flashlights, things to have on hand in case you have to be at home without power. Just really important to have. You might have to turn off your gas. You might have to turn off your water if you have water problem. We probably all should know how to do those kind of things, right? If you don't know how to turn off your house water, figure it out. If you don't know how to turn off your gas, figure it out. Learn how to do some things. We need to practice. It wouldn't hurt to have some maps so you know where to go and how to get places. In case you had to flee out of the city, where are you going to go? This is why we need to think ahead of time and have a plan of what we're going to do. Let's say I'm in one place working, my husband's at another place, my kids are somewhere else. If there was a scenario, where are we going to meet? If we can't get home, where are we going to meet? Home would be our first choice, but if we can't get home, where's the second choice? We should have that planned out and figured out and know where to go. And then you should have some personal protection. Like I said earlier, now's the time to buy N95 masks. You should have some, gloves, nitrile gloves, masks, things like that. So if something happens, you're prepared for those kind of situations. You should have some food stored at home for shelter in place. You need some long-term food. We're going to talk about food in a minute. But you know already how quick shelves can be emptied in a situation. It used to be a long time ago that grocery stores in their back had a storehouse where they stored food. They don't do that anymore. It's shipped in nearly every day. And when they run out, if they can't get their next shipment, they don't have anything. That's just how our world works today. So you should have some things stored up. You should also have water, because if you don't have electricity, you're not going to be able to get water. And so you need 1 gallon per person per day. 1 gallon per person per day. And so that is, you need to think about having some water at home. It really doesn't cost that much if you go to the store, buy one of those cases of bottled water for $3 you can get it sometimes. Take it home. If you don't have very much storage, you live in an apartment, put it under your bed. Put it under your shoes in the closet. Keep it in the trunk of your car, and just have some extra water on hand. How long can you live without water? 3 days. After 3 days, your brain starts to get in a fog. And the worst thing that can happen if you're in a crisis situation is to have your brain in a fog, right? You really need to keep your brain hydrated. So you also need, if you have water around, I actually crossed a river right before I got to this church. A river right here. So if I lived in this area, I would know that I wouldn't need to store too much water because I have a river right here, right? So I need to wait to be able to drink that river water. So we're going to talk about that too in a bit. So shelter in place, you need water, you need food, you need to be able to stay in warm. If it were winter time and you had to shelter in place and you didn't have heat, what's the best way to stay warm in your house if you don't have heat? And let's say it's 20 below zero. This is when you need camper mentality. So you move into a small room. So you think small shelter, right? So you don't try to live in your whole house. You live in one room of the house. And you shut the door, and you all stay in that one room. And then you can stay warmer because all of your body heat is heating up that one room, and you're not trying to heat the whole house. So you make your shelter small. The smaller the shelter, the warmer it will be. So if you've ever seen pictures of these shelters in the woods, I've actually taken groups out. We've built shelters in the woods and had people sleep. Some of the guys built these big shelters, I'm like, you're going to freeze to death. The smaller the shelter, the warmer, because your body heat is going to warm up that air in that small space, right? And you're going to stay warmer. So the same mentality if you don't have heat in your house, stay in one room. You might have to evacuate. And that's where you need to have your things in a portable way that you can actually carry. So I knew this guy, and he had a Jeep, and he had all the old-style military gear in his Jeep, like the heavy canvas coats, all from World War I kind of stuff, super heavy. I think he told me he had over a ton of weight in his car with his gear. I'm like, dude, what are you going to do when you run out of gas? I can't even lift your coat. It's so heavy, So you need to think about that. The lighter, the better. So that's why I have things like this, a stove that weighs 1 ounce. That's a stove, and it only weighs 1 ounce. So it makes it's easy and light and portable. So you should have enough things in your bug-out bag for at least 14 days, that you could survive for 14 days in your bug-out bag. And you have a list of things that could be in a bug-out bag. So I want to talk about some different elements. So one of the most important things is water. So I have actually drank a mud puddle before. But first I filtered it. So there's different kinds of water filters. So there's something, have you ever heard of a life straw? A life straw is okay for one person. You can put it in the water source and you just, like a straw, you just drink out of it. But it's not that great for cooking and stuff, because what are you going to do, right? So I think, it's okay, but not my favorite. There's these water filters. These cost about $20. So for the cost of a pizza, you could have a water filter that would filter 10,000 liters of water, right? And you just put the dirty water in the bag, screw this on, and squeeze the water through this filter, and you have clean water. And it works great. And this is it's called a Sawyer. And so this was the first Sawyer. It was this big. Then they came out with this Sawyer that's little tiny baby. So they have Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear now of these Sawyer filters. And you can come up and look at them after, but they pretty much work the same. They will filter out all the bacteria that's in there that would make you sick. You know that you can't drink any water from a natural source, right? Today. I mean, they used to do it a long time ago, but you can't do it today. It's not safe to drink from a natural source. I have done it a couple of times in a dire emergency, and thankfully I didn't get sick. But your chances of getting sick are really bad, and you would have like extreme diarrhea and be really, really sick, and you don't want that in an emergency. So other kind of water filters are these pump kind, where you have a hose that goes into the dirty water, and you have a hose that comes out the top, and you pump the water through the filter. This particular one will filter out viruses and bacteria. And you don't really have to use this in the United States, but if you went to another country, you would have to have this because you're not used to the viruses that are in another country. So that's that kind. And then this is a SteriPen, and this has a battery, so it has, it's only as good till the battery lasts. So if you only had this, you have one source. So how many sources do you have? If you have one, how many do you have? None. If you have one, you have none. So if you only had this, eventually you wouldn't be able to purify water because your batteries would die if you didn't have more batteries. So what this does is you put this in the dirty water and you push the button. I don't know if and you swirl this around in the water, and it kills the bugs that are in the water. And then you can drink the water. You're just drinking dead bugs, and they won't hurt you because they're dead. Yeah. There's so little protein, I don't even think it would do you any good.
Does that apply with the Leviticus 11?
What?
Never mind.
Oh. So yeah, that's a SteriPen. I mean, it's not bad. I've used it lots of times. It's okay. My new favorite is this. It's called Be Free. This is my new favorite water bottle. You just scoop dirty water up into it and then just squeeze it through and drink the water. And it comes out really fast and it's great. So this is my new favorite that I take this with me. I travel a lot for work, so I just have this in my bag. So I can fill it at the airport and drink it, If I was in a situation while I'm traveling, I could do anything, any kind of water, and be able to drink it. So you can come up and look at these water sources afterwards. So you should have some ways to start a fire. So, of course, the best possible thing would be this, right? I couldn't tell you how many times I've been in situations and they said, we got the birthday cake, but we don't have any matches. I'm like, got a lighter. So there's also something, you can do a flint. So this knife actually has a flint in it. So I don't know if you've ever seen a flint. It's a steel rod. And you scrape the knife onto the rod, and it makes a spark, and then you can start a fire. And it works great. And this, would last forever. I've started hundreds of fires with this, and it'll last forever. The last time but like 3 times ago when I was at a church doing this, I did this and hit a spark, and the spark went down and burned a hole in the church carpet. So I stopped doing it to show you how it worked. Probably a good idea. So anyway, that's how that works. So it doesn't hurt to have some kind of, multiple ways to start a fire. Have matches, have some lighters. It really wouldn't hurt even if you don't smoke, to carry a lighter with you. I keep one in my purse, I have one in my car, and it just comes in handy for so many things. So, if you are outside, you can't get home, and you can start a fire, there's something very comforting about having a fire, and it will keep you warm. If you were really cold, it would keep you warm. So I would want to be able to start a fire in whatever situation I'm in. You do need ways of cooking. So, like I said, this is the BSR stove. It weighs 1 ounce. It goes onto a fuel canister like that, and you can cook your food. It's very efficient. The flame goes straight up, so all the heat goes right into the bottom of your cooking pot. And I like it because it comes in this tiny little bag. So, when you're a backpacker, every ounce counts. So that's that kind of stove. There are versions of that stove. That stove costs about, I think, $12 on Amazon. This stove costs about $5 on Amazon, so it's kind of the same thing. So really, for just a little bit of money, you could have a second or third way to cook your food, which is really nice. This is a little stove that uses really low wattage, so I can plug this into my solar charger and cook with it. So that's kind of a nice way to do. So for, being stranded at home, this is just another version of a little stove. This is a jet boil. It goes like that. A jet boil is nice because it boils water in 1 minute. So when you think about cooking food in an emergency situation where you have limited fuel, you want to basically just boil water and use that boiling water in your food. And if I had to cook, let's say, beans in here, how long would it take to cook beans, like dry beans? Yeah, a long time, right? So that probably would take all of my fuel. So a lot of people think, well, I'm going to start preparing, I'm going to go buy bags of beans and rice. How long does it take to cook rice? A long time. Beans and rice are fine if you shelter in place at home and you have power. If you don't have power, those two things are not the best choice because they'll use up all your resources really fast. So you need other options. But this is a great way to just boil water really quick and have it. This is called a bio stove. It burns wood, and it has a USB port. So as the wood burns, it can charge devices. So it's not a super fast charger, but it is nice. It has a little fan that it generates its own energy, which creates a fan, which makes the flame go in circles inside of there, so it gets super hot like a forge. And that generates electricity. So it's kind of nice. I've done some cooking and experimenting with that one. You also need, with the cooking, you need some kind of cooking pot. So here's my cook set that I take with me. It's in my bug out bag. So it's a pot. It's my stove, a lighter, and 2 cups. So everything right there condensed and easy and light. So these are collapsible cups. So I keep one of these in the glove compartment of my car. And, it's great. I always have a cup. If I'm traveling, my dog needs a drink. She's got her bowl. If I need water, I can stop and get water. So it's nice just to be prepared like that, so if something happens, you're ready to go. When you have these kind of things, if your radiator breaks on your car and you have some duct tape and you have a cup and you're by a river, you're good to go, right? Tape the radiator, fill it back up with water, and you're all set. So I actually have done that before. So having some way of cooking that's portable is nice. If you had to leave home, You're not going to drag your gas grill behind you, right? So having another alternative way, simple way, for $5, you could buy a little stove, stick it in your bag. If you have to leave home, you're good to go. And then you're not worried. There are emergency kits that you can buy. Are we still doing the prizes? You have to just stop me whenever, because I won't ever remember to do it. So there are emergency kits that you can buy, and I just want to show you this because I've had people say, well, I don't want to make a bug-out bag. I just want to buy a kit. So Ready.gov, Ready America, Red Cross, all of these organizations sell kits like this. But this is basically an emergency kit, okay? This is an emergency kit. This is an emergency kit. This is an emergency kit, survival kit. This is a survival kit. This is Ready America survival kit. And this is a survival kit. So this kit costs about $50 and $20 and $20 and $10 and $5. All of these kits would be better than nothing, but in my opinion, they're insufficient. They're not going to have everything that you need because you're unique, your family is unique, and you could do better than any of this. So, if you want, you could get one of these kits, then jazz it up and beef it up so it has what you really need in it. So they basically have like a flashlight, a radio, emergency blanket, some water, a little bit of food, a little bit of first aid, and, those kind of things. Maybe a knife, a multi-tool is in there. So this one has a little bit of candy in it and, a flashlight and some batteries. So, but, I can do better than that. You can do better than that too. But it's a place to start if you have nothing. So, you need to get a kit. You need to have some first aid things in your kit, some over-the-counter medication for diarrhea, for headache, for inflammation, for constipation, all of those kind of things. Because when you're in a crisis, your body doesn't function like normal, right? So you want to be prepared for that kind of stuff also. Also, you should have some sanitation and hygiene stuff. Purell, of course, we know from the pandemic, right? We needed those kind of things. And if you already had those things before the pandemic started, you had no worries. And if you didn't have them, then you had a problem because you were worried about it. You also should think about clothing. So you should have something for rain, some kind of rain. A lot of these kits have like a rain poncho. For $1 at Walmart, you can buy a rain poncho, right? Throw it in your kit. I mean, for the price of a candy bar, you can get a little piece of kit and put it in your gear, and you have something. And something is better than nothing. You can get rain pants. Depending on time of year, you need something like wool. There's a saying in the wilderness, cotton kills. So if you were in a situation where you were going to be cold and wet and you had on a t-shirt and blue jeans, that's a recipe for freezing to death. So not wearing cotton socks is the best option. In fact, for Christmas this year, just tell your family you want a pair of wool socks. And you can get wool socks now that look like dress socks, and they're just wool socks, and they keep your feet cool in the summer and hot in the winter. And they're great, and your feet won't sweat. It'll get rid of foot fungus and all those other kind of things just by wearing wool socks. So wool will keep you warm even if it's soaking wet. So this is a wool hoodie. It's made out of alpaca wool. It's probably the warmest thing I've ever worn. So this is now my go-to for backpacking, and it's kind of light, and it works great. So you can even just go to Goodwill and look for some wool sweaters there. It doesn't matter how beautiful it is. You're not going to a beauty contest. You're trying to stay warm, right? So get an old wool sweater at Goodwill for $4 or $5 and throw it in your bag, and then you have it. So clothes are important. Depending on time of year, you might need some kind of gloves. This is a pair of wool socks. They just look like normal girly socks, right? But they're wool and would keep your feet warm. So especially now with winter coming, you might want to have something like a down coat or a down blanket. Keep it in your car. I'm from Michigan. I mean, we just were trained, keep peanut butter crackers in your car, a blanket, and a candle. So if you get stuck in the snow, you have something to eat, and the candle will keep you from freezing to death, and you have a blanket, and, you wait till morning kind of thing. So it just helps to have that kind of stuff. This is actually a shelter kit that you can buy, and you can learn how to make a shelter just out of some plastic. I personally have a nice tent in my bug-out bag, so a 3-person tent with 2 vestibules, so it works great. It does have a few problems right now because the last time my husband and I went to Minnesota, rats ate through our tent in the night, and my husband said I slept through the whole thing, but he said during the night he felt something crawling on him, and it was a rat, and the rat ate through the tent, and he had to fling it out of the tent. I guess he had quite an ordeal, but so eventually I'll have to get a new tent, but it's taped up right now. But a tent is a great thing to have. So a tent is kind of part of your shelter. Your shelter is your body, what's keeping your body comfortable, what's keeping your body warm. So you need to think about that also. And also kind of shoes. So if you work away from home, throw a pair of walking shoes, especially for ladies, throw a pair of walking shoes in your car or keep a pair by your desk just in case. Are you ready? Draw a number. Number 18. Number 18. That's you? Here's a first aid kit for you. All right, sure, let's do another one. Whoops, I got a number. Number 8. Number 8. 8. Is that you? Here's a flashlight for you. All right, any questions about clothes? Any questions about clothes? Any questions about water? Any questions about stoves? No questions about nothing? So these are some kinds of shelter. So you can spend $1,000 on a tent if you're rich. You can spend $2 on a tube tent. You can sleep in a trash bag. I have tried all methods of sleeping outside in the wintertime. So this is an emergency blanket. So what this does, it retains all of your body heat and stops evaporative heat loss, and so it will keep you warm. I have slept out in the wintertime with an emergency blanket when it was 20 degrees outside and still alive to tell about it. What happens is you'll be soaking wet, but you won't freeze. So it's nice to have one of these. I carry one of these in my pack when I'm traveling for work, just in case, something happens. I have, a flashlight. I have, essentials in my pack for that kind of thing. So, super light and easy and nice. And if you happen to be in the mountains, you can take your emergency bag, lay it on the ground, sit on it, and it makes a wonderful toboggan down a steep slope in the mountains. So, again, one thing is more than one thing, right? So, thinking outside of the box. So, let's pick a number here. Number 11. 11. So, number 17 is right here. 17. 17. There you go. Can you take that? All right, I try to give out a few things, motivate you to go home and get your stuff together. So, shelters could be something just like a tarp. A tarp is a great shelter. They're waterproof. A tarp has lots of uses. I keep a tarp in the bottom of my bag, and it's great. Keep you warm, keep you dry, keep you protected from the weather. You need to think about special needs. If you're diabetic, if you need special medication, if you have pets. I mean, if there's a situation you have to leave home, you're just going to say, bye Fluffy, have a nice life, I'm taking off. What are you going to do with your pets? You need to think about that. There we go. So you also need to think about, if you wear hearing aids, you need extra hearing aid batteries in your kit. Do you need contact lens cleanser? All those kind of things. Think about what you would need. Do you need baby formula? Do you need cloth diapers? What is it that you would need in a situation? And then get redundancy of that. Because one is none. And so you need to have redundancy. You also should have your copies of your important documents. Like I told you, my sister's house burnt down. She grabbed her stuff and she had all of her important stuff there just because she had planned ahead. So the idea now too is to have $1,000 of cash on hand. So if electricity goes out, guess what doesn't work? Credit cards don't work. So when credit cards don't work and you have no cash, that means you have no way to make any exchanges. So having some cash on hand in small bills is a really good idea. And if you don't have $1,000 of cash, you can stick away like $5 here and there and put it in your bag, put it in your bug out bag, and you'll have it, or put it in your safe at home, put it somewhere so that you have it. My recommendation is don't put it in the barrel of a gun like my uncle did. And he put $500 of cash in the barrel of his gun, and then he forgot, and he shot the gun, and it was just like confetti. So think about where you're putting it, but, put it somewhere and have that cash on hand in case you need it. And it's great to have that little emergency fund, stashed away. You have it. I couldn't tell you how many times there have been situations where somebody needed something, somebody needed money, and I had that little emergency fund I could tap into and then replenish it. Or, I needed some small bills, and there they were, and then I could replenish it. So it's great to have that. That is my backpacking bag, but I do not have $1,000 in there today. So when you come up here, don't think you're going to be looking for it. Actually, it is amazing, all the seminars I've done over the years, how many times people have stolen my stuff. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I do welcome you. I have perfect trust in you guys, but it is amazing, you wouldn't think people would do it, right? So, yeah, get your important documents, insurance papers, those kind of things. Get copies of those insurance papers, life insurance, car insurance, bank accounts, credit card numbers. It would be a good idea to write your credit card number down, your phone number, the phone number on the back of your credit card. Have that in a separate place. If somebody steals your wallet or you lose your credit card and it's gone, you have that written down and you're ready for that. You have your bank numbers written down. You have all of that information written down. You should also write down your driver's license number, your passport number, and also have that retained with your important documents. Any kind of medical problems, you should also have that written down also. I'm having oh, there we go. So if you're not prepared to help other people, and that's really the key, right? Is being prepared so that when something happens, I'm not so worried. You know, I have food, I have water, I have, protection, I have clothes. And so if I'm not so in a crisis myself, then I can focus on other people and help other people that might be in a crisis. But it's going to take more than one person to be prepared to really be ready, right? We need to be prepared. Every one of us need to have the responsibility to be prepared ourselves. The bottom line is, someone may not come to your rescue, right? The government, in all that they do for us, they can't do everything for us. And so they may not be able to come to your rescue. So you can self-rescue by just being prepared for these kind of things. So do you have any questions? Oh, I didn't show you this. This is something I carry now. This is called a Whizzy Wipe. That was the first name. They call them different things now. But a Whizzy Wipe is kind of nice. I have some water here. So I'll show you how it works. Can you see it? Yeah, so it's basically a washcloth. You just put some water on it, and you have this instant washcloth. Look at that. I mean, it's great. It's a really sturdy little washcloth. You can, on Amazon now, when these first came out, you bought these little tubes, but now you can buy these whole bags of, Whizzy Wipes for really cheap. And they're so easy to carry because they're just like a little pill, and then they just expand. And, for hygiene, for washing your face, for taking a complete bath, just something simple like this really makes a difference. So I wanted to show you that. This is called a rat sack. So if you had to be outside, this would keep squirrels, rats, mice, chipmunks, all those little guys from getting your food. So that's what this is. And this is a bear canister. So really, here in Iowa, you don't really have to worry about grizzly bears. But where I go backpacking, there are grizzly bears. And so far, grizzly bears haven't figured out how to open this. So just in September, my husband and I went to Wyoming, and our first night out, a grizzly bear walked by our camp, about 100 yards from our camp, just walking along. So it's nice to, have your food in there, and so they can't get it.
So when you're talking about being prepared at home, so where do you keep all that? Where do you have it in just all in one plastic bin, and you just keep it under your bed, or do you keep the stove in your kitchen and then the little wipes in the bathroom?
No, so you keep it all together so that it's all in one place, everybody knows where it is, and you have it condensed so you can grab it and go if you need to. So try to keep, everything in one place. So even your stuff, your food and everything for long term, keep it in one spot. So I just have a shelf, and I keep all my stuff on that shelf. So I have a big red backpack, kind of like this one, that's a dry bag. It's waterproof. I have one like this full of medical supplies, and I just keep everything on the shelf all together so I know where it is. The problem is you have some of this stuff at home, but it's scattered everywhere. Some of it's in your garage. Some of it's in your kitchen, some of it's, somewhere else. So what you need to do is collect it all and keep it all in one spot so it's easy to get and you know where it is. Remember that 5-minute rule. Think about that. So you want to keep it handy. So I do want to talk about food too. So when you're thinking about food, remember I said you want to boil water in about a minute and then pour the boiling water onto food that will absorb the boiling water and you can eat it without cooking it. And that's where these kind of foods, like these freeze-dried kind of meals or dehydrated meals, where you just pour the boiling water on it and you can eat it, that's what all of these kind of meals are. And you can buy a lot of this kind of stuff at the grocery store, like instant mashed potatoes and quick cook pastas and soup mixes and all of that. It has long shelf life, and you can just pour boiling water on it in a Ziploc bag even and cook it. So when I go backpacking, I boil water. I have my food in a Ziploc bag. I pour the boiling water on the food, seal the bag, wait 10 minutes, and eat the food. There's no cooking. So if you're in a situation where you have limited resources for cooking, then I think that's the way to go, because you don't have to do anything to it. And you don't have to wash any dishes, right? Because washing dishes takes water. And if you have limited water, you don't want to be washing dishes. So you can experiment with just buying some simple meals at the grocery store. This is just a little meal packet. It's millet and a bunch of vegetables. You just pour boiling water on it and eat it. So, you can go expensive with freeze-dried meals that are more expensive, but they last a long time. This one doesn't expire till 2048. So when I'm an old woman, I'll be eating this. But they actually taste good. And now, like 40 years ago, you were very limited on the kind of food you could get in these. It was beef stew and macaroni and cheese, stuff like that. But now, if you're a vegetarian, they have vegetarian options. If you're a vegan, they have vegan options. If you're gluten-free, they have gluten-free vegan options, or gluten-free vegetarian options, or gluten-free not vegetarian options. So there's lots of options now for this. And you can get them in these big cans, which also lasts a long time. This one expires in 39, so still have a few years to go. And you want to get stuff that you would actually eat, because, if you cannot stand onions and all of your food is full of onions, you're going to have a problem. You want to think, what can I do that would benefit me the most physically and that I could tolerate, right, for the cheapest amount that would last the longest? So even something like ramen noodles lasts a long time, super cheap. They've done all kinds of analysis, and ounce for ounce, ramen noodles give you as much energy as anything. That's why a lot of backpackers and mountain climbers eat ramen noodles. So for the price, case of ramen noodles, keep it in your storage area, pour boiling water on it, wait 10 minutes, eat it. So it works. It works. All right, let's do another thing here. Number 19. Number 19. No 19? Oh, you're 19? Here you go.
Question, if we both have 12, who gets it?
You both have 12? Yeah. That's the numbering person that did that. Number 10. Who's got number 10? Number 10. Who's got number 16? 16? Here's a flashlight. The sound guy. And let's see, we'll do another one. Number 13. You? Here's a first aid kit for you. All right. And we'll do one more. Who's got number 1? Number 1. Here, you can try pasta primavera. All right, I think I've covered everything generally that I wanted to go over today. I want you to just think about organizing yourself at home. What do you already have at home? Put it all in one place. What would you need, like absolutely need for survival? Probably your first priority is water at home. Get some extra water at home. Then maybe food, maybe some of the gear, candles, if you don't have power, some of that kind of stuff. Think about what is your number 1 priority of what you need redundancy on, right?
Things happened in the last 3 years that show more the need of this. First one was derecho when it hit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had what? 0 notice.
Right?
Our block was without power until Saturday afternoon, so 6 days. We had water, but we couldn't cook anything. We didn't have a flashlight in our house. She brought in the solar lights from outside for lights in the house at night. Worked well.
Yeah.
But we weren't prepared for even the simplest.
Yeah.
The second was, you talk about how fast things can happen. With COVID, we saw how fast things
Yeah.
changed. We will, if we believe, I hope I'm not totally wrong on this, but the Bible and all it says is going to happen at the end times. The government is not going to help us.
Right.
Christians especially.
Yeah.
So we have to be prepared for ourselves.
That's why I think it's really like a spiritual thing, because I've traveled a lot for my work, and wherever I go, people are being prepared and feel this urgency to get prepared. And so it's happening all over the world. And that's how the Reformation started, right? It happened all over the world. Different people had that same urge and impression of what to do. And I feel like God is doing that today with all the books that are out, all the shows that are out. There's lots of YouTube videos on government agencies around the world trying to encourage people to be prepared to be more self-sufficient for a time. And yeah, if you believe the Bible, this is going to happen. So the more we wrap our head around it, what I'm telling you is not to be a paranoid schizophrenic about it, but wrap your head around it and get prepared for it, right? And if you're more prepared, then you're like my family in Michigan. Oh, a blizzard, no big deal, right? Pandemic, no big deal. I got stuff, I can deal with it. I have to leave home. Okay, well, I'm going to take some stuff. Tornado, all right, I'm strapping that on my back. If I live and end up in a cornfield, I got that on my back, right? I mean, have that kind of mentality. I really would love to be a survivor and be one of the last people on earth, wouldn't you? And walk into heaven. Wouldn't that be awesome? And God expects some of us to be those people. And if we're going to be those people, we're going to go through some stuff. We need to teach ourselves things, learn things, be prepared for things so that we can actually survive through those things. And it does take spiritual, mental, physical preparation, right? All of those things. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much for all that you do for us. Thank you that you've told us these things beforehand so that we can be more prepared when stuff happens in this world. I pray for each person here. Give us a ability and an instinct to get better ready for what's coming. In Jesus' name, amen. Feel free to come up here, do whatever, look at stuff, ask me questions. That's why I brought all this stuff. Oh yeah, those are nice. Yep.
Keep your hands warm or your feet.
Yep. I got one of those right here. Yep. Yeah, they're great. I have toe warmers too. So they're nice if your feet are really cold. Right, yep.